Okay, so our first speaker is Romain Phoenix. Thanks very much.
This week I heard an interview where the content of the MBA programme, the Masters of Business Administration, was being discussed. And mainly because there's not been any ethical content in this teaching programme, not till very recently anyway. Any talk of bribery and corruption never seemed to make it into any of the classes up to this point. None whatsoever. But there was a former Harvard Business School graduate, I think it was on the World Service, I heard this, speaking of how he was working with many others to try and put together an oath that could be sworn at graduation, a business, a banker's oath, like the Hippocratic oath of the medical profession, but perhaps spelled a little bit differently. It's easy to be cynical, because it's logical, it's rational, it's intelligent to consider that any such suggestion as fairy lights on a dying tree. It shows that they're worried, they're desperate to get back to business as usual, to inject confidence back into the market. There are different kinds of capitalism, the guy said, and for a brief moment I fantasised that there was enough of us already that we could take out each of these different kinds one at a time. But it's not like that, is it? I think before climate change became a regular topic in our media, we had mass coverage of the rich and famous, spearheading calls to end world poverty, rescue the starving millions, cancel debts of the developing nations. And I don't want to knock the real benefits that have been made from many individuals and families and some small communities by some of these charitable works. But while the current model of free market capitalism continues, we can be sure of one thing, that certain charities are heading to join in as one of the oldest professions in the world. Right now, we've got 75% Bangladeshis who are living on the absolute poverty line, and 6 million of them working abroad in other countries, sending back desperately needed, economic aid to support their families, a lifeline to their families. And the figures for all around the world are incredible. The significant percentage of a nation's income that is made up of money sent home by people working abroad. And the biggest amount is actually China, and somewhere in the top few, Mexico and Moldova. And there are many others, and for some, that amount is actually becoming a more significant amount, even though others are falling due to recession and the lack of jobs available. There's never been any evidence of the trickle-down effect as wealth is created. The gap between rich and poor, as we know, is ever increasing worldwide, and here in Britain, and in my own borough down in Lewisham, where at the moment it's the 4th most difficult place in the country to find a job. The health debate in the US illustrates how deep this story, this illusion that free market capitalism equates to individual freedom really goes, when those who haven't even got access to healthcare, health insurance, which is up to 1 in 3, express anxious concern that the state could organise healthcare for all that need it. Health insurance is all they're offering for the low-paid or the non-working. And it's been contested as if this was the thin end of the wedge of communism. The money being poured into this battle, the bombardment of advertising, is from the health profiteers protecting their future wealth, using any means possible, deception, fear-mongering, state-of-the-art, whatever they can get their hands on, costly market research techniques of persuasion. Many of you probably read Naomi Klein's shock doctrine. She exposes the precision with which a business attacks what they see as opportunities when disasters strike. We've had, in recent times, Iraq War, Hurricane Katrina, and the tsunami in Sri Lanka. Milton Friedman's Chicago School of Economics, which seems all-pervasive. But if we're to make changes that we also need to think about our civil rights here at home. And we need to transform our democracy. We need to devolve decision-making to the most local level, wherever possible. We need to empower individual voices in our communities, make every vote count in our national elections, with a PR system chosen by the people, not by Gordon Brown, when he's done his jiggling of the figures and see what suits him best. We need to restore trade union rights. We need more MPs doing committee work. We need a constitution. We need to strengthen and protect our democracy here at home so that we continue to build our links internationally, but to build our power and our voice here so that we can make stronger links right across the world. What we do have is a growing confidence now in the work going on in the trade unions to develop environmental awareness. I mean, initially it was to do with having environmental reps in the workplace, not wasting energy, issues of sustainability of materials being used within the fabric of the building, within the manufacturing base. But rapidly it became understood that in the context of climate change and questions of fuel supply, peak oil question, that the nature of work would be affected, changes would be needed in some industries, and some industries could shrink or completely disappear. And this has led to development of the concept of just transition. Because any such changes that will happen, that will have to happen, will be for the benefit of all. The argument is that the cost of such changes should be shared by society. The argument is more urgent now, of course, because of recession. Massive unemployment, and we're looking for the prospects of greater unemployment before anybody gets to grips with sorting out a solution. Certainly haven't got any central support for in mass investment in a green, sustainable future. Nothing like that yet. But yeah, the argument's more urgent now because of the global recession. It's been reflected in heavy job losses and business closures and a collapse in certain sections of the sectors of industry. Well, the recession wasn't caused by the workers, so why should they have to suffer the consequences alone? Carbon emissions must be cut, workers can and must be financially supported while any retraining is provided and new green jobs set up. During any such changes, workers and their communities have got to be involved in the decision-making and in the planning and in a meaningful way. You only have to look back to the Thatcher years, the mining, steel industry and more on top of that. The just transition concept actually began in America as a result of plant closures due to the need for compliance with the anti-pollution legislation. And it's been applied also in cases in Spain and Argentina. And it makes sense even now within the economic modelling that there is. It made sense. It paid for itself. Even though I think in the case in North America, I think it was a 4-year promise of financial support in line, the same as the wages that they'd had while there was retraining, while the new jobs provided. And another thing I'll say is the work that I've been doing within the Campaign Against Climate Change trade union group, the conferences that we put on, the outreach work we've done with unions, that's probably some of the best work I think I've been involved in. And I don't say I'm proud of very much because I'm not really very American, but I must say I am proud of the work that I've done with Campaign Against Climate Change, with fellow colleagues from different parties and groups on the left. And I think there are moves happening here now in Britain, and it could move forward very, very fast. The International Trade Union Confederation, the ITUC, have been working hard to try and get the language of just transition into the agreements in Copenhagen. But the language is only just beginning to spread here in Britain, and we need to all work towards making this common parlance, really, and get it in headlines, get it out there as discussion and demands. The demands are specific and detailed, but in themselves, they won't directly notate an equation for the end of capitalism.